Welcome to another edition of Chocobo Chasers. I am G, and as always, I am joined by the Chocobros, Eric and Dash. Boys, how you doing?
Fantastic.
I'm pretty relieved and happy now. I think
Yeah,
I figured out my problems now, so no more interruptions for me. I'm here to
we'll
stay.
have a we'll have a YouTube upload. So happy.
Oh, you stopped
Um,
doing the YouTube uploads
I
because
yeah,
of me?
the editing was a little too choppy for us to be able to go ahead and transition some of the pieces. So we've had a YouTubeless show lately that is going to be changing this episode. As always, be sure to like, share, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. We have a pretty fun little show for you guys tonight. As always, we're going to go ahead and we're going to kick the show off with a "What are you playing?" I'll go ahead and I'll get us started this week. I have played a game which we've talked about a little bit on the show. None of us have played it up until now. That is Rise of the Ronin. So Rise of the Ronin is the newest game from Koei Tecmo. It is a game set not in I wouldn't say feudal Japan. It's 1850s Japan, and it takes place over the span of about 10 years is how long the game kind of takes place over. So there's a lot of change and turnover. There's a lot of revenge and deceit. And, going into it, there's obviously a parallel people are going to make. It's a PlayStation, only title. What is the Japanese PlayStation only title that we had released not even 2 to 3 years ago in Ghost of Tsushima? I don't think it's a really fair parallel, and I'll tell you guys why. So one, it's not as good as Ghost of Tsushima, which is an incredibly high bar. So that's not to say that this is a bad game. I will start off by saying that Rise of the Ronin is a good game. It is firmly in Days Gone territory. We're talking a 7 or 8 out of 10. It's a solid game. Some of the positives, really tight combat. One of the things I thought was really interesting is that your block and your parry are two different buttons in this game. That takes some getting used to. Uh, One of the reviews talked about oversaturation of loot, and I was like, okay, there's too much loot. It's ridiculous how much loot there is. And there's not a just go into the menu and get rid of all. You have to find somebody to be able to go ahead and sell it all, and it takes a minute. That's a little annoying. Another positive, the voice acting is pretty good. There are a lot of characters. One thing that I would say, Rise of the Ronin is more like Dynasty Warriors than it is like Ghost of Tsushima. From its giant catalog of characters, because man, there is a lot. To kind of just the combat style, I would definitely compare it more to Dynasty Warriors in an open world setting. But it has like missions, as opposed to Ghost of Tsushima, which is just this very open world and things happen in the world. So the way that it's kind of set up is you'll find somebody and then you go to set out on these missions, and you can choose party members to come along with you based on who you've recruited and everything. Another really cool thing is that you don't have to play as just your character. In missions, you can switch between all of your characters that are along with you. And this is really helpful when you're fighting like incredibly difficult bosses, because there are some hard ones. I had to switch difficulties about 3/4 of the way through because it was kicking my ass. Um, it's a fun game. Is it a great game? I don't know. I was actually really considering also doing a platinum run of it at first. Like I was really that into it. Some of the stuff started to get a little bit tedious. Like some of the side quests, literally, it's just like go here, kill this person, come back. So there's just not a lot of variance there. But I would say honestly, from a gameplay standpoint, it's very cool. The weapons all feel quite a bit different, which is something that in these kinds of games can be a little, you never know. But I tend to rock with an Odachi, which is kind of like a Japanese greatsword, and I kind of switched between katana and I'm trying to remember what the other one was called, but a much lighter sword for my secondary. But there are like bayonets, so you can actually use the bayonet arm as like a melee, and then also shoot like and you can have kind of similar to Star Wars Jedi Survivor, where you have a katana in one hand, you can use a revolver in the other. So it's a lot of really cool gameplay, and there are a lot of really well executed ideas. I will say that I have said that there are a lot of reasons people will compare it to Ghost of Tsushima. There is something at the very end which is almost kind of copy and paste from Ghost of Tsushima. I'm not necessarily going to spoil what that is, but I thought the story was interesting enough. It deals a lot with the politics of this era of Japan and the westernization of, you know, the effects that the British and the Americans had on this era of Japan. I thought was really, really neat. So I'm not going to spoil anything story wise because I know Eric is potentially planning to play it. Dash, you may be ending up playing it at some point as well. But yeah, I had a great time. So aside from that, played a little bit of Helldivers, played a little bit of Madden. I did actually just place my pre-order today for college football. So very, very excited about that. So yeah, I think that's it for me. Eric, what about you, man?
So I have actually gone backwards in time a little bit, and
Ooh.
I downloaded. So there's a mod coming out for Total War Attila
Okay.
that I'm excited about called Dawnless Days. And for any of you who are unaware, a lot of people are modding Total War Attila because now people have access to a lot of stuff. Like the current Total Wars, you don't have map tools, so people can't alter maps and make like Game of Thrones, like stuff like that, like they could with Medieval 2. Like you had the great Third Age Total War, you had Westeros Total War, you had all kinds of stuff from Medieval 2 that you just haven't been able to do in a long time. Well, now a lot of that stuff's come to light, and so people are working on one. It's called Dawnless Days. They had to change the name from Shadow of Mordor because Warner Brothers pressed for a lawsuit, and it's going to be full-on campaigns of Lord of the Rings. And you can play as Erebor, you can play as Rohan and Ladris, Mordor, and all these things. And so, and also like I've kind of been fiending for like Medieval 3, and there's this one spectacular mod for Total War Attila called 1212 Medieval Kingdoms 1212 AD or something like that. But if you've never played it, it's the closest you're going to get to Medieval 3 right now. And it basically reworks a lot of Attila's mechanics because Attila is not a popular Total War.
Okay.
Because it's kind of like they have like these saga games where they put out where they're like kind of like, so Thrones of Britannia is like a real small one where it's kind of set in like the Dark Ages, and you have just a little bit of a time frame for that. It's all like the old English kingdoms during the Viking invasion. You could play as the Vikings and things like that. It's not super well received either. A lot of people don't like those games because they were kind of charging almost like $40 for a pretty small game. And so that kind of aggravated everybody. So Medieval Kingdoms 1212, they give you all kinds. You can play as Kingdom of Jerusalem. You can play as a bunch of Saracen empires. You can play as the Holy Roman Empire, King of England, Kingdom of France. I started my campaign as Kingdom of Sicily. I have now conquered and subjugated all the other Italian city-states, and I now control. I formed the Kingdom of Italy and made the Holy Roman Empire very upset, and so they've declared war on me. And because I have fought the Holy Roman Empire and they're favored by the Pope excommunicated me. So all of Christendom despises me and is coming after me.
Hell yeah.
And if you play the old Medieval 2 Total War, you know what I'm talking about. Like you could just go all in, you could attack other Catholic nations, but the Pope would warn you, hey, don't do this or I'm going to excommunicate you. But if you kept doing it, you'd get excommunicated. Great time. And so I played a lot of that. And I played some Valorant for some just comp games with the boys, turn your brain off stuff. And that was pretty much it. I
Hell
spent
yeah.
a little bit of time over the weekend with our Saint City and me brother sister podcast, I guess you could say. We went to French Quarter Fest in New Orleans with a couple of those guys, Dan and Mike. Shout out to those guys for coming in.
Shout out to
Totally
our
not
boys.
jealous.
Yeah, FOMO definitely not a
Yeah.
thing.
That's y'all's own fault.
Hey,
I'm just
Should've
poor.
been-
I'm sorry.
Should have been born in a better place.
Dash.
Don't move here, it sucks.
Dash, what about you, man? What have you been playing this week?
Well, let's start off with I got my main group of people for Helldivers, and we just been screwing around on the Helldive difficulty at this point, where it's like I think we've reached the point where we're not even trying and we're still succeeding. Like well, there's one mission on Helldive where we're just throwing grenades at each other, trying to kill each other while doing the objectives and stuff. It's like, hey, if you stop running, I'm gonna hit you. So it was kind I was like, we died more times to each other than we did to the actual enemies. It's like we're actually getting to that point where I feel like, you could be a really good cohesive unit even on hardest difficulty. It's like, hey, it's not that bad. But of course, like the new War Bond stuff has some pretty interesting stuff. But then there's like a gun in there so bad, apparently, that people are saying it's like a trap set by the automatons. But really looking forward to whenever the third faction's gonna come. We know they're coming. It's been data mined to hell, but I'm waiting for that moment. They had Jak and Daxter: The Lost Frontier on added to the PlayStation Plus catalog. I never played it because it was a PSP game.
Ooh.
I was like, hey, let's check this out. This is not made by Naughty Dog,
Oh,
so that's all. That's one red flag right there. And
yeah.
this is a game that never had high praise from the Jak and Daxter community, and I can see why when I started playing it. It felt very cheap and just didn't feel like what I wanted from a Jak and Daxter game. And I dropped it pretty quickly. It was like probably an hour in. I'm just like, I'm not playing this.
It's kind of
Like-
like Megamind 2, which I didn't know was a thing until like a few days ago. But
They
apparently,
didn't even
made
get
this-
Will Ferrell back. It was
Yeah.
There's a
ridiculous.
Megamind 2.
Yeah, apparently on like Paramount Plus or something, or
Peacock, I think.
Peacock. Yeah, thank you. And
Yeah,
and
that's
it has none of the original actors, none of the writers, and it's
They didn't even
apparently pretty
try to
terrible.
get someone that could sound like the original Megamind either.
Yeah. So anyway,
Yeah.
back. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Please go ahead.
No offense to PSP games and how cheap some of them might have been or felt, but this one especially felt just cheap and low quality. I mean, there's some good PSP games out there. Like, I mean, we had Peace
Crisis
Walker,
Core. We have
Peace Walker, and what was the other one? Birth by Sleep, duh.
the Uncharted game for PSP was awesome too. Or no, that was a Vita game.
Yeah,
But
that was
PlayStation
Vita.
handheld still, but yeah.
Never
I wanna
played
play-
PSP.
I only had it for a few games, which was like Birth by Sleep and Dissidia and Final Fantasy Tactics and Crisis Core. Yeah.
You still,
so.
I like how you still have it on your shelf.
Yep, I see. I'm just looking at the 4 PSP games I had. I'm like, those were the only reason I had PSP. I never bought anything else.
It's a cool
What
little
else?
collector's item these days.
You brought it up, but I did start Days Gone.
Fuck yeah.
Yes.
Fuck
I
yeah.
wanted to see what everybody talked about, and I feel like I'm gonna get some hate for this, but when does this game actually start getting good?
Have you encountered your first horde yet?
I've stuck by some. I'm not gonna fuck around with the horde because
See, that's part of the fun though. Like
Yeah.
it's just when you start going ham and then you're running and you flip your camera to just look around and see behind you that there's just like 100 of them. The story
I have
is,
trouble with like 6 of them.
oh, it gets so much worse. The story the story for Days Gone is not amazing. It's
the
fine.
second half it torpedoes kind
Yeah.
of. Like the first half's pretty good until you get to like
There's a
I've
very
done, like-
specific part.
I've done like most of the major stuff that you can do in that Caldera area, I guess, and now I've moved on to Hot Springs at that point. But it's like, obviously I haven't done any of the hordes. I see them and I'm like, okay, I can't do this. I struggle when I get swarmed by like 5 or 6 of these things.
You're also a completionist too, though.
Yeah.
So you're taking a very different approach than say Eric or I probably did when we were playing this game.
Did you just do like the main quest? So it's like go here, do this, and go.
Yeah,
here?
I did some
I
of the
don't
side
100%
stuff.
any games.
Yeah, I did
'Cause-
some of the side stuff just to, like if I wanted to like upgrade my bike,
Yeah.
like that kind of stuff. But honestly, I was just going straight into the
I'm always right.
I put a bunch of crazy mods on mine. I made my bike 2 times faster, and I made the suppressors last longer and look like real suppressors and not oil filters. So it looked cool.
Yeah, I'm running out of gas constantly, so then I have to leave my bike somewhere, go find a gas can.
yeah. That's that's part of the gameplay. Like it's kind of survival-esque. But
It's just like, they start you off, you get Boozer shotgun. I'm like, okay, yeah, I can do this. And then of course, they take the shotgun away and they give you this dinky, crappy pistol that only has 20 bullets and whatever scrap weapons you find other than that. And it seems like, I guess, they do have a tier system. I finally realized. I'm like, okay. So I'm starting to get those slightly better guns, but still not like good to the point where I would feel comfortable with like a horde, let's say. But at least it's more manageable to take on a slightly larger groups of these infected. They kind of get annoying though, because it's just like I'm just trying to sneak by them, and then one will just like come out of nowhere from the side and aggro, and then suddenly all of them are coming at me now. And
Yep.
I don't like the melee system in this either. It's kind of like very
Yeah, it's definitely meant to be more. So you'll see this more as you continue throughout the game, but for hordes, you're going to use mostly like projectiles, and you're going to use bombs and kind of
explosive
things of that nature.
Yeah, and that's
so,
kind of like I remember that from the trailers, and I remember seeing like the horde. I'm like, man, this is pretty cool. I can't wait to do that. And I'm like, okay, I'm a far ways away from being able to do that.
when you get to napalm them, it's so satisfying, just fucking raining
Yeah,
fire down
it's
on them.
like
So
I throw a Molotov, and it like probably
take out like 5, but
yeah, I'm like okay, there's like no spread on some of these explosives, and
Yeah.
obviously I can't craft pipe bombs or frag grenades yet, so I only had like what I found, pulled off of somebody's body.
yeah,
But I mean, it's not bad, but like what you said for Rise of the Ronin, it's in that category of good.
it's good. Yeah, and not every game needs to be excellent.
Yeah.
So
It's just like, I feel like I'm kind of hitting that drag early, and maybe I should just focus more on the story kind of stuff. But
that's what I would recommend.
that's how like I get that sidetracked pretty easily. Let's see. We had the Fallout show premiere, so I started doing some New Vegas. It's actually something I haven't 100% before, like I've done with like Fallout 3 a couple times.
Oh
So,
my God.
I am actually gonna try to do like one full playthrough of New Vegas. Just I've done like the Good Springs, and I'm almost done with Prim, and then I'll just kind of work my way around.
Hell yeah.
Um, let's see. I picked up a game I've been watching for a long time, something like I've been watching YouTubers play because it was limited early access, so you could only play it if somebody gave you access to it. But now it's fully early access, open to the public. So I picked up Infection Free Zone, it's called.
Okay.
So little $25 game. It's not too in depth. It's made by the same people who do like these 911 dispatch games, but instead now it's like a zombie simulator. But the cool thing about this is that it uses global like GPS, geo map data, and you can literally play anywhere in the world. So like I started a match in like where I live currently here in Florida. I've done some in where I used to live in Indiana. You can like choose like your neighborhood. The neighborhood I live in now, since it's a new construction, they still don't have I guess whatever map service they're using, it still doesn't have those buildings registered. So like my entire street is just empty of buildings still. It has the road, but it doesn't have the buildings. So I just played other areas. Like I started like my first one in my hometown, like I just used the Zaxby's as my headquarters kind of thing. But you just send out, you could like create squads, send them to scavenge out and get like bullets, food, weapons, other kind of materials. Then you'll have to like, after you explore buildings, you can outfit them to be like shelters, warehouses, cookhouses, medical centers, or research stations. And you send people out to like chop down trees or even scavenge metal. And I mean, there's nothing too complex or in depth about it. I think the biggest selling point of it is the fact that you could play theoretically anywhere in the world. You couldn't play in like the middle Sahara Desert because there's no buildings, so that it kind of doesn't work that way. And if you play somewhere in like, let's say, downtown New Orleans, it's going to be very hard because it's a very dense area with all these buildings, and you need like line of sight fire for your people stationed inside buildings. So it can kind of get hard if they can't see what's coming. But really fun time. I mean, it's something I can just play in the background while I'm doing other things.
Hell
And
yeah.
that's it for me. But it seems like now with my new motherboard, I've had no crashes when I'm using like my PS2 emulator. So I think I've finally gotten over that last hurdle that's been causing the issues, and maybe I can actually play more intensive games again. Maybe I'll go back to playing Warzone on PC. Who knows? We'll see. I ended up deleting Call of Duty off my PS5 to make space. It was 250 gigabytes. I'm not keeping this on here anymore.
Gotta get that M.2.
I know.
Time to expand the drive. So we have talked about one of the games I mentioned earlier was Rise of the Ronin. We are going to start doing a new effort on Chocobo Chasers, talking about, when we're talking about new games, and specifically, we've had the opportunity to interview a lot of really cool people in the space. We want to be able to bring those games to light when we come across them. And obviously we're, some of those times it's going to be via word of mouth from the direct person that, we've talked to. And sometimes we're going to notice it on our own. So Rise of the Ronin, just wanted to call it out. One, because 3 of our previous guests are in this game that I know of, maybe even more. But Earl T. Kim, Daisuke Tsuji, and Rhiannon Mauschel all are in Rise of the Ronin. I have encountered at least 2 of the 3. It may be 3 of the 3, to be honest. But Earl's character is very important, especially endgame, which is very cool. And it's also very cool because his character is so different than Norio in Ghost of Tsushima. So very, very cool. But, we are... Our guests, when we've talked to them, they've been a part of, different games. Daisuke has also been in Mortal Kombat. Doug Cockle was in Baldur's Gate, and this was well before we knew he was going to be a part of Baldur's Gate. And he was also Nightingale and Alan Wake 2. We wanted to definitely make like a stronger effort to be able to go ahead and call those out. Because if we're seeing those, we want to be able to celebrate those people. We want to show, one, that we are incredibly grateful for them taking the time to go ahead and, spend time talking to just a bunch of nerds who really love gaming. But also, in a lot of these cases, these are going to end up being games that we love and that we play anyway. So very, very cool to see, 3 of our people in Rise of the Ronin. Can't wait to see them continue doing their awesome thing. I'm fully expecting, Eric, I'm telling you, Ghost of Tsushima 2, we're getting our reveal.
Coming.
It's coming. Yeah, it's happening. Daisuke is going to be back. I hope Earl's going to be back as well, because we need it.
I'm looking at Rise of the Ronins.
Hiroyuki Sanada is going to be in it. Hot take.
That would... just put Hiroyuki Sanada in everything.
It's not because I have been watching Shogun,
which is excellent. Apparently, I still haven't watched it.
Fucking loser. You are a fucking loser.
I need to watch it. I want to watch it. I'm carving out time because I'm already watching another show, which is exactly what we're going to talk about right now.
Fuck yeah.
Fallout. Fallout has come out. So Amazon has done a pretty awesome job on their just takes on different source material. So we had The Boys, which is excellent, and they have actually expanded on The Boys, and at this point the show is probably better than the comic, which is
it's much better than the comic.
Is a wild statement for something that takes inspiration. We've also had Invincible, which is also a very good adaptation. So Fallout is a little bit of a different case. And Eric, you made a really good point about this earlier. So a lot of people look, what's the best video game adaptation? And most people will probably say, well, it's The Last of Us. And Eric, I want you to kind of tell me what you were telling me before the show, because I think that what you said makes a lot of sense.
I will say, I think Last of Us is a better show, but it's almost kind of cut, copy, paste of an already very cinematic game.
Right.
And you have Fallout, which is adapted with a lot of new material that they've created themselves, and they've come up with new characters, and they even came up with a new vault this vault's not mentioned in a lot of the other ones. And this is kind of in an area, if you ever play Fallout 1, the story, it kind of revolves around you're in, was it Vault 13 dash? And
Fallout 1
1?
is Fault 13.
Yes.
Um,
And so there's a super mutant called the Master kidnapping people in that area that you're in the wasteland, and turning them into super mutants and creating a super mutant army. And he's going through finding all kinds of different vaults and clearing them out and doing things like that. And so it was never, and actually one of the main guys who created Fallout lore said, he goes, we just never mentioned it. Like people were kind of going nuts. Oh, this isn't in the lore. That's not a thing. And he was like, well, we never just mentioned it, but it could have been there that the Master didn't know about it, type of thing. And so, and they just come up with this thing all entirely themselves, and they've adapted it from scratch. And in my opinion, so far, like in recent memory, it's one of the better ones. It is the best one I've seen.
Best video game adaptation.
Yeah,
it's canon to the overall universe too.
Yeah.
Like,
I think the only thing that was weird was the Shady Springs incident.
Yeah,
had
but
a lot of people divided because the year was different that they said in the show compared to the game. But fuck it.
It happens. This is like a 20+ year old franchise. Retcons and changes to like timelines happen. It's not a big deal. New Vegas is still canon to this universe. New Vegas still happened. But people are like, oh, because this happened, that means New Vegas can't happen. No, they both can happen. There's no reason they can't. Maybe there's some throwaway dialogue that might not be completely correct now, but I mean, it's still relevant and it's still there.
It doesn't take away from like the overarching story of everything.
I mean, look at I can't think of any franchise that's been 100% consistent over such a long time period. Like even the MCU had to fix years because they fucked up in one movie and said, oh, that doesn't fit the timeline. Then they have to go back and retcon something. So it's just part of the world. I know, like, but sometimes these New Vegas fanboys can get very protective of New Vegas. It's just
well, and I don't even think that it's necessarily specific to Fallout or even New Vegas fans. I think that anytime you get a group of people who are incredibly passionate about something, you're going to get people who are overly protective of characters or lore or even just the world. Like,
and you also have to deal with the fact that these are two different companies that have created this universe over the time. So, you had the first two games that were created, but then Bethesda took over with Fallout 3. Obsidian did Fallout New Vegas, which played very good homage to the first two games,
and was very different from Fallout 3 and Fallout 4, and in a lot of people's minds, like New Vegas is the best entry in the Fallout series. Other people might say 3, some might say 4. I don't think anybody's saying Fallout 76. But ultimately, we're left here with easily one of the best video game adaptations. And we've mentioned in the show that like video game adaptations are only getting better. We have come a long way from, I
don't want to hear that the curse is broken. It's been broken for all years now.
It has. And it's not, I think one thing that's really refreshing is that it's not just movies or TV, it's both. And we're seeing, The Last of Us obviously was, I'd almost like equate The Last of Us to like kind of like a mini series event, because they could make no more Last of Us and it'd be great. Which, and to be fair, the game was that way too. They didn't have to make The Last of Us Part 2. And some people wish that that's what it I'm not one of those people. Love The Last of Us 2. But you have Fallout, which is taking a whole new story in a setting, and credit to Jonathan Nolan and Lisa Joy for creating this world and for understanding the source material, even though they're not like huge gamers themselves, but just having great representation. I think there's a lot of parallels to Guardians of the Galaxy in this, like, especially from like a comedic standpoint. I think that they've done a really good job of making the show pretty funny, but not in like a forceful, like, oh, haha, we're having to throw jokes in every 2 seconds. But it's like, you're throwing
not Thor Ragnarok.
No, Or
No. I'm sorry. Not
Thor,
not
Thor
Ragnarok.
Love and Thunder is what you're.
That Ragnarok was tremendous. Love and
I-
Thunder was fucking
Vault
genius.
dwellers are just another breed.
Yeah. Well, and I love that there's like
Walton Goggins is so good.
and he is great. Like, but I do love the Vault Dwellers, and I love that they're just this like they're just the sheltered child that has no clue what these like absolute horrors lie beyond the vault. And it's just a tremendous show. I have one episode left to go. Very, very excited to probably finish it tomorrow night, and then I'm gonna start watching Shogun. So there we go.
Yeah. Shogun only has what, 2 episodes left?
Yep. It's pretty much I think next week would be the finale then.
Yeah.
It's hard to believe because I feel like they could do so much more. And it's like,
Yeah.
wow, it's already
Well,
come to
it's
an
only
end.
going to be the one season too.
Yeah.
Because it's a book, I believe, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a book. Yeah.
So, well, you know, Eric, you also talked about this. Like, it's just such a cool time to be a nerd right now because we've got all of these incredible media going on. We've got, you know, fun games. We've got Shogun. We've got Fallout. We've also got X-Men 97, which
X-Men 97 is a fucking banger.
Just if you're a fan of the original 90s cartoon and you haven't seen 97, so the first few episodes, like it is incredible. There's one episode that just feels very fillery. And you're gonna have some of those episodes, which is fine. But this most recent episode 5, was one of the best animated episodes of like anything I've seen in a very, very long time. Just it's such a cool time to be a nerd right now. And I'm very happy.
Sonic the Hedgehog 3 is coming up with Keanu Reeves as Shadow now.
Literally our next bit of news here. Like which is weird because we got all of this insider, you know, notice that it was going to be Hayden Christensen, which I was super stoked about. I talked about it on a previous episode. This is not a bad choice either. Keanu definitely fits Shadow from like a voice perspective. And I think that, you know, the writing, it doesn't need to be super deep or super crazy, but it's going to be a good time. Just, if literally just keep doing what you're doing. There's rumors that we're going to get a very like game accurate Eggman this time around. So I'm very curious to kind of see how that works. Jim Carrey has slowly just been morphing into the Eggman.
He literally came out back pretty much. He stopped his retirement to do another movie as Eggman. He really loves, like, this is peak Jim Carrey back at it.
Yeah. Well, and he's just at his Jim Carreyest, which is all we can ask for. And so it's a lot of fun. We have to get Eric to watch Sonic 1 and Sonic 2 because the Knuckles TV show is coming out.
Oh, yes, it is.
Also, we're getting Sonic the Hedgehog 3, which is in theaters. I want to say December 20th.
Knuckles gonna be on Paramount.
It is.
Yep.
I'll send you my login. We're
gonna
everything
is on a different streaming service. You gotta love it.
Well, and some of these services are, you know, doing their like password crackdowns, which is
do you have HBO? I'll trade you HBO.
I have HBO, but
until they crack down on passwords.
I have nothing left to offer you because Hulu's
doing that in June.
Yeah.
I have Hulu too, so we're I will accept your love.
Well, there is no pleasing you.
But so one other
pancake. Bong gonna blint.
Anytime I think of that movie, I just think of him eating his skin, and I just want to puke. So
I always think of when Minnie-Me's like, "Are you sure you don't have like something in you?" And she's like, "Oh no," and he's like, "Do you want to?" And
are you sure you don't have a little clone in you?
Yeah, that's what it is.
And he just starts laughing so hard right afterwards.
That and the name tag bit with Michael Caine.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, nameless henchmen I've killed over the years, and the guy's like, yeah.
You don't even have a name tag.
You've got no chance. Just go lay down.
Smoke on a pancake? Bleach in a bomb?
So, 2 last bits of news for us to go ahead and talk about tonight. We talked about Star Wars Outlaws pretty favorably last week. We were pretty stoked on it. And then Ubisoft has to just go doing its Ubisoft thing. Dash, I'll let you kind of go with this news because it's just ugh.
So yeah, they put out that most recent Star Wars Outlaws trailer, and they're like, highlighting. It's like, oh yeah, look at this. You'll get to go and do all these sorts of missions. You'll get to meet like Jabba the Hutt, and then it turns out someone dropped a bomb that's like, yeah, that Jabba the Hutt stuff, that's gonna be DLC. So they advertised their game with DLC before it was even out.
And it's not even like true DLC though. It's just like a paid mission in game.
Which is what most DLC has been nowadays. It's just like, this is content that they developed and had ready before the game was even sent out. And it's just basically either they kind of hold it back, time gate it, or, just it's in there. If you want it, you have to buy the extra content. This is already a $110 game if you want that full experience at this point. Or if you do what most people do for like some of these Ubisoft games, you wait for the gold edition that comes out like a year later.
I'm not buying it now because of this. I'll wait till it goes on sale.
But that's Ubisoft doing Ubisoft. They've been doing this for how long now?
Yeah, it's just it sucks because you're not surprised, but like I want to be surprised that they're not doing it. I want to be in a situation or in a world in the gaming universe where we're not having just microtransactions DLC run down our throats. I'm fine paying for DLC, but make it like legitimate content, and when you're releasing your game, don't already have DLC. Like if there is DLC that is being announced at the same time as your game, it should have just been included in your game.
That's the way they roll now.
It's
not like Elden Ring where, oh man, we didn't even plan on doing DLC, but because of the high acclaim and demand that this game had for more, we decided to develop it.
That's the same thing as Final Fantasy 16. There was just people wanted to play more in Valisthea, and now we've gotten, I cannot remember what the first DLC was called, but Rising Tide literally comes out Thursday this week. So, and that's going to be our last bit of Final Fantasy 16, which I'm not very sad about, but also just happy to be able to go ahead and dive back in. I'm literally going to download Final Fantasy 16 again.
But you saw like those big patch notes that they released today for Final Fantasy 16 too, where they actually added more cutscenes, more characters. Apparently, like this isn't just going to be in the DLC; they're adding stuff to the base game too. Improved photo mode. I think they said they increase your attack and outside of icon battles, so it probably makes fighting the mobs a bit less tedious, kind of stuff. Yeah. So, I might have to go through and do another playthrough at this rate. Maybe I'll finally do my new game plus mode.
Do it. It's a lot of fun. So to go ahead and close out the show tonight, we wanted to end things on a positive note. So, and we've talked about this actually already on the show. Invincible is a very popular show on Amazon Prime. It's a very popular comic as well. So Skybound Entertainment is making a AAA Invincible game. So we don't get a lot of like great superhero games right now, which is kind of weird just because there's really not really an excuse for it. We have all the technology, like graphics are better than they've ever been. We've got some insanely talented writers. There are some that are in the works, like Amy Hennig's new Captain America and Black Panther game looks incredible. But these games are kind of few and far between right now. So they're going to go ahead and they're going to launch a AAA game for Invincible, which is a very cool character, voiced by Steven Yeun of The Walking Dead. His dad, Omni-Man, is one of I'd say one of the cooler characters. He's kind of their quasi Superman for this world, and it's just very, very cool. If you haven't watched Invincible, definitely do it. But the reason I'm bringing this up is that so they're developing this game. They started a Kickstarter from Skybound Entertainment, which I thought was very interesting. And the goal was to go ahead and raise $50,000, I believe. As of right now, they have raised $450,000. So it's safe to say that this game is going to be made. So the minimum investment for the game is $100, which is definitely a little bit different than some of the other investments that we typically go ahead and see. So yeah, the initial funding goal was $50,000. Campaign's already over $445,000. They've already raised 17.8 million from like additional investors as well. So I think this is just kind of gauging the public's interest in this. It sounds like this may have already been made, but with that $100, it secures you the game, and I think it secures you
I
some
think
other
they
things as
definitely have to
well.
have some major publisher like funding too,
Yeah.
because if they're only asking for 50,000, that is not a AAA game. There has to be a lot more money in the background than that.
Yeah, and so again, I think that this mostly potentially stems from just kind of gauging public interest, and it's a good way to do it. I mean, especially when your minimum investment has to be, $100. It may have been smarter in this case to do $50 because then like it's also like a premium bonus for people to purchase the game. They get at kind of a
Do you
reduced
even get the
price.
game with the 100 thing? I'm looking at like the
Um,
option. I think it's just like you invest 100 and you get investor points. I'm not sure if this is like an actual investment where you have a stake in this and it
so if
pays out.
if the game makes money, you potentially can make money. Yeah, I don't know. But I mean, they're obviously well past their goal. I think it's a great idea to go ahead and adapt the character. I do hope that, let's say
So
in
apparently they've also made some like Unreal using the Unreal Engine for Fortnite, they've
Mhm.
made some modes for Fortnite. So they've been advertising that too, like the Invincible Dock Seismic Attack and the GDA Combat Training. So like they've actually been using like Fortnite's engine to create like these modes and stuff.
which, to be fair, most major games these days are made with Unreal. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth was just one example of a recent game that was made with Unreal. Dragon's Dogma is made with the RE engine, but just it's very interesting to see because I do think that like assuming this goes forward, everything moves along as everyone hopes. I do hope that they continue to bring along the same cast who is part of the show into
Oh
this
yeah.
game. J.K. Simmons as Omni-Man, Steven Yeun. There's a lot of really talented people. Sandra Oh, and so it's exciting. And
I
something
see no reason why J.K. Simmons wouldn't do it.
well, and he's already been in
Yeah.
games. I mean,
Yep.
he was Ketherick in Baldur's Gate 3. So
I think
we're
he did the Omni Man for Mortal Kombat 1 too, really. I know someone didn't do their voice in it was they did get Anthony Starr for Homelander. I think those the big thing there. But like J.K. Simmons, he always did like J.J. Jameson for like almost every small project when they were back doing it after the Spider-Man movies. I think
yeah.
that's a role he really loved and couldn't give
He
up.
just
Like,
well, and he also fit it so well.
yeah,
He
he
he is J.
was
Jonah Jameson.
I can't see anyone else being him at
No,
this
I
point.
I remember seeing him at the end of Spider-Man 2 or the second Tom Holland Spider-Man and just being like, "Oh my God, like he's here. Like this is amazing." Um but no,
He's the
it's
real multiverse.
yeah. He Doctor Strange, I love you in every universe. That's me with J.K. Simmons. Just another member of the Bald Club as well. So I think that's probably a pretty good spot for us to go ahead and tail it off. You guys have anything else you wanted to dive in?
That was it for me.
Nope, I'm good.
All right, fellas. Well, it's been real. We appreciate everybody checking us out and stay tuned because we'll be back next week and we appreciate everybody checking us out. Have a good one, guys.
Have a good one.
Later. Thank y'all.